Okay, this is lesson 13, microeconomics, and this is about public goods, private goods, quasi-private goods, the tragedy of the commons, and technological change. Okay, a private good is just simply the definition. You only need to know the definition, which is when the consumption of a good stops someone else from also having that particular good. So that is a private good. A public good has two characteristics. It's non-rivalry. So unlike a private good, if someone consumes that good, it doesn't stop someone else from having that good. And the other one is non-excludability, is that you cannot exclude anybody from the benefits of that particular good. Now really, a public good is pretty easy and straightforward to understand. So you just need to know non-rivalry and non-excludable. Where it becomes slightly more difficult is when you're looking at a quasi-public good. Now, a quasi-public good is when it could be totally provided by the government, but is often could also be provided by the market system. And they often quote here the example of a road, which is a quasi-public good, because what you can do here, due to technological change, it's now possible to charge people for using the roads. Now what that means is if people use the motorways more, then they're going to be charged more than other people who hardly use them at all. So therefore you are putting in the price mechanism into the road system. So there are lots of sort of quasi-public goods, and sometimes you must react to that within the exam. This good should probably be provided by the government because it's a missing market. This sort of market, right, will not be provided by the private sector, simply because of the characteristics of a public good, which is non-rivalry and non-excludability. Okay, so that's public goods on there. I've already spoken just a very quick bit about quasi-public goods on there. We're moving on to quite a big concept now, and it's a new concept to the syllabus, which is the tragedy of the commons, and it's put across by Garrett Hardin. And what it says is individuals acting independently and rationally according to the self-interest, right, behave contrary to the whole group's long-term interest by deleting some common resource. Okay, so if everybody just acts according to what they believe is best, ultimately everyone else will also suffer. So for instance, there's loads of examples of this, and obviously the biggest one of them all is global warming. So we all act in our own self-interest, so we all produce more carbon emissions. The problem at the end of the day is that everybody suffers from that. And we can even do this in relation to nations. So China wants to industrialize. So if China industrializes, then it gives off a lot of carbon emissions, the most in the world today. However, that's in their self-interest, but for the whole world, globally, global warming is bad for everybody else. So that's a pretty big one. But they've also got fish stocks. If you individually you want to fish as much as possible because you're on your own business, you spend £100,000 on building it up, but it's going to cost you a lot of money, and so that is a problem of the tragedy of the commons. And even things like the welfare state. And if we look at the UK, the welfare state has created a sense of dependency, and often it's produced very large families amongst the poorest of our society, and they do this in a way so that they can bring in more benefits. Now that may be to their benefit, but it may not be to the long-term benefit of the whole country. However, the UN quite rightly says having a family is a fundamental human right, and really we shouldn't be making those sorts of judgments. But also in third world countries it's exactly the same. The more children you have, the more likely you are to be looked after in your old age. But overall it's not doing the country a lot of good. And there's some incredible statistics with Ethiopia that they've doubled their population in the last 40 odd years. And in the 1980s, when I was around, there was a massive famine in Ethiopia which killed over 1 million people. So sometimes it's better to have smaller families. And this really moves on to Engels, who comes up with a very famous quote: freedom is the recognition of necessity. So we can't just have total freedom, because total freedom will not improve society at large, and there must be certain rules by which we abide by. So freedom is the recognition of necessity, that we need to live by various rules from there. So end of lesson 13.